So that's another lesson, actually. You don't have to know the answers to convince people that they can do something. I didn't know it was going to happen, but it worked. Let's see. Okay, next lesson. I could talk for hours, but don't worry, I'm not going to. So the next lesson, one of our first games, original games, was a game called Lost Vikings for the Super Nintendo. So this was a puzzle game. You had 3 Vikings, and you used them to complete all sorts of different puzzles. It was kind of a side-scroller, a little bit arcadey. We actually got the original idea from Lemmings, which had all little guys running around on the screen, and we gradually pared it down to just 3 Vikings who could do different things that you could work with. And so during the course of the development of this project, and we were doing everything on the project, we were pretty happy with it. We had created all these Vikings, we had designed the levels and everything. The president of Interplay, a guy named Brian Fargo, actually took the game home, he played it, and he came back to us with a whole bunch of critical feedback. Keep in mind, we thought we were done. And he said, look, first of all, the Vikings, they all look the same. You guys need to redo all of the art and animation for the Vikings. They're just not, they're not good enough. Second, it's way too hard. You need to make it a lot easier. So our initial reaction was, the game is awesome, what are you talking about? But Alan was very smart, and he took the feedback and he said, no, actually the characters could be a lot better. And Interplay, what they did is they actually offered one of their artists to redo our Vikings character animations. And so back then you had if I remember right, 8 palettes of 16 colors on the 16-bit Nintendo, and all of our Vikings were drawn from a single palette of 16 colors. So that's why they all look the same. They were all using the same colors. And so Interplay had this idea that they were going to take one of the Vikings, draw it from a completely different palette of colors, and so we basically let them do that, which, I gotta tell you, letting another company redo your main character artwork in your game, that's like this thing that it's letting go in a way that was crazy at the time. But at the end of it, they had this this artist, his name was Jason, redid these Vikings, and they looked so much better at the end of it. We also went back and looked at the difficulty, and we made a lot of the levels way easier, so it was way less frustrating. And at the end of the process, we saw how much better our game was. And that sort of instilled a culture of iteration at Blizzard that exists to this day. It's always been, I've seen this over and over and over again, the people that are involved in developing a game are way too close on the project to be able to evaluate the game balance and a lot of little things that people with fresh perspective see when they first encounter the game. And so part of our process now, and it has been ever since, is basically to have concentric circles of new, fresh eyes take a look at our games and provide critical feedback, and even just put the game in front of them and watch what happens. Because, you know, that first experience, they weren't involved in the design process, they weren't involved in all of the reasons why these Vikings had to be drawn out of the same 16 colors, they don't have any preconceived notions, and the amount of information you get from that first and second impression you can't get from the people that are working on the project, and you can't even get from these people a month later when you fix everything. You gonna kick me off the stage yet?
No,
okay.
You can talk until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Okay, so this is like 1992, 93. We did a game called Rock and Roll Racing, which was a sequel to RPM Racing, which was the first game that Blizzard ever did. So these games got some critical acclaim. We started getting nice write-ups in magazines. We were picked as best game developer of 1993 by Video Games Magazine. And we started thinking about how we were going to get to the next stage of development. And what we thought we wanted to do was actually find an established company to help us fund a new product that we would be working on. And so we looked at different companies. Interplay was certainly a possibility, but there was also this educational software maker called Davidson & Associates, and we thought we might be able to ally with them. So we actually got some work for them doing a port of this creativity kit for kids. It was called KidWorks 2. I actually personally did this, a port from Macintosh to the Amiga. No, Macintosh to Windows. So this is my first Windows project. And it went so well, Bob and Jan Davidson started to take an interest in our company. And they decided that we would be a great fit as their entertainment division. And so they actually approached us about potentially acquiring the company. We weren't looking to sell the company, so our immediate answer was, no, we're not interested, thank you. But they called us back and they said, okay, what would it take for you to say yes? And we thought about it. And, you know, first of all, well, to make a long story short, we picked a number that we thought was pretty high. They got very close to it, and they promised us that nothing had to change. That we knew games, we were doing a great job, they knew education software. They promised us complete autonomy to continue making games, except we would also have access to their sales and distribution and marketing, PR, and all of these things that weren't actually game development. And so we agreed to the acquisition, and this enabled us to start working on our first Blizzard title, which was Warcraft: Orcs and Humans. So thinking back, it's actually really interesting because we took them completely on faith when they gave us this verbal promise that nothing would change. It never occurred to us to ask for anything in writing. Bob and Jan had a majority interest in the company, even though it was public. And so within a year, we released Warcraft: Orcs and Humans. It was a moderate hit. The following year, we released Warcraft 2: Tides of Darkness, which was sort of our breakout title. It just became more and more popular as the year went on. And then, actually, while we were showing Warcraft 2 at the Consumer Electronics Show, this small developer called Condor approached us, and they had this idea for a role-playing game called Diablo. And they pitched it to us. Actually, they pitched it directly to Alan. And Alan thought the idea was really awesome, and so we actually started working with them on this Diablo concept. Midway through development, things were going so great, we convinced Davidson & Associates to buy the company, and we renamed them Blizzard North. Anyway, so while we're working on Diablo, it became clear that, you know, there really needs to be a way to play this game with your friends over the internet. And so we started working on Battle.net. Battle.net is a matchmaking service, and the idea was we wanted to make it as simple as possible. With one click, you should be able to connect with other people and play together. And so that's sort of how Battle.net came into existence. Let's see. It is interesting that in order to develop Battle.net, in order to finish Diablo, we actually really wanted to get it out for Christmas 1996. We were working on this other game at the time called StarCraft. But it started to become clear that Diablo wasn't going to be ready in time for Christmas, unless we did something drastic. And so we actually took the entire